Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday night interview with fascinating people about fascinating ideas and subjects. And tonight we have with us our good friend, local, from Director of Chabad of Wilmette, Rabbi David Flinkenstein, to speak about this coming Shabbos, which is Shabbos that blesses the new month of Kislev. And in fact, Rosh Chodesh Kislev will be Sunday, and Beis Kislev, which we'll touch upon the significance of those days, will be Monday. It is the Kinnis HaShluchim. So when you go to shul this Shabbos, there'll be no rabbi. So you'll have lots of fun. There'll be plenty of cholent and no rabbi. And these dates are not only like every day is special for its own, but it has a real special significance in the world of Chabad, in the world of Lubavitch, that dates back almost 50 years. And I've asked Rabbi Flinkenstein to come and share his personal memories and insights about this special day. So first of all, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you spending some time. And we do want to be respectful of your time and not keep you too long. So we appreciate your being with us. So take us back, if you will, just to jump right in, to 1977. And that's, I guess, the first time that we highlighted Rosh Chodesh Kislev as being a specifically special day in the world of Lubavitch.
First of all, thank you, Rabbi Epstein. It's a pleasure to be here, honored to be here, especially honored to be called back to this very illustrious show.
Yeah.
So, a repeat guest. Going back to Rosh Chodesh Kislev. I would like to highlight, first of all, before 1977, there's another time where Chodesh Kislev, at least it's not well known, but at least in my family it's known. My father-in-law, Rabbi cousin, he came to 770. I believe it was 1956. And he had his first private audience with the Rebbe in the beginning of the year, around this time of the year, the 27th of Cheshvan. And during that time, he had asked the Rebbe, since he came from an Ashkenazi home, and now he was in Lubavitch Yeshiva, in Chabad, he wanted to know if it would be appropriate to change the nusach, the liturgy of his davening. If it will be okay to start the Chabad using the Chabad Siddur, because normally you don't just change around, from liturgy, from Ashkenaz to Sfard to Ari. Whatever you're going to be doing consistently, and you don't just change from one to the other. So he asked the Rebbe if it would be appropriate to change to the nusach of Ari, and the Rebbe told him yes, it would be appropriate. But the Rebbe told him you should start on Rosh Chodesh Kislev, which was a little strange, because all good things you start right away. This is 27th of Cheshvan. Maybe the next morning you should start. The Rebbe told me you should start Rosh Chodesh Kislev. In any case, the end of that year, the Chidus was he was called back in. The Rebbe gave him a siddur, a pocket siddur as a gift, and the Rebbe told him you should daven. You should use the siddur and daven b'simcha. You should daven with joy and matzliach zayin and be successful. So it's interesting that Rosh Chodesh Kislev, for whatever reason, had a place with the Rebbe. Now, going back now to 1977, I was then 10 years old. I was not in 770 at the time. So I could share what I heard about it, but I could share also my experience of that Simchas Torah that year, 1977, where I grew up in Brighton Beach. The rabbi of my community, of my congregation, was one of the Rebbe's secretaries, Rabbi Sholem Mendel Simpson. And it was not well known that he was one of the Rebbe's secretaries because, as first of all, he did not live in Crown Heights, so he was not someone who was always behind the Rebbe. Had that kind of, he was always behind the scenes, and as any of the secretariats of the Rebbe can attest, you could hear from them, from about them. Everything was top secret. But with Rabbi Simpson, not only was it top secret, everything that he heard or saw, it was top secret that he was even a secretary. But I found out later on that he was one of the secretaries. Simchas Torah, so in Brighton Beach, paint you the scene. Brighton Beach, if you heard of Brighton Beach memoirs, Brighton Beach was a very Jewish community, but at that time, it was a very elderly community. The people in my shul were, on average, well, I can't say elderly because now we're not that elderly. Let's just say they were up in years. They were up in years. The average age was 80 and above. They were up in years. I remember there was one member of the congregation who was over 100. In any case, Simchas Torah, the Bachrim, the students, the young men of Crown Heights, the yeshiva students, would walk from 770. The Rebbe would send the yeshiva students all over the metropolitan area, all the Jewish communities. The furthest community that they walked to was Brighton Beach. It would be about a 3-hour walk, 2.5, 3-hour walk. It was a 10-mile trek, 9-10 miles. And the Rebbe would then start his hakofis, the Simchas Torah celebration in 770, only after all the Bachrim would come back, and the Rebbe would ask, did the Brighton Beach group come back yet? That's when the Rebbe would start hakofis. So the Rebbe's hakofis would begin somewhere about midnight, the Rebbe's hakofis. So unbeknownst to us there, the Rebbe suffered a heart attack, Shmini Atzeres, the first night, Shmini Atzeres, 1977, Tov Shel Lamed Ches. I would look forward to the Bachrim coming to Brighton Beach, because when they would come, the place would be alive. They would be dancing a storm. I would be hoisted upon their shoulders. It was fabulous. It was great. They would be dancing in the streets. And then everyone would gather in the rabbi's home from all the different shuls that the yeshiva students would gather. They would all then go to the rabbi's home, and from there go back to Crown Heights. So there was an unusual fervor that night, and rumors started spreading that the Rebbe suffered something, which was then known as a heart attack. The Rebbe suffered a heart attack on Shmini Atzeres. But they continued dancing a storm like never before. They were singing, "The Rebbe is gesund," which means the Rebbe is, instead of saying the Rebbe is not well, the Rebbe is healthy. In other words, using the mindset of think good and it will be good. At one point, I was hoisted upon one of the yeshiva students' shoulders, and I was given a small cup, and I was asked to say l'chaim, the Rebbe soll sein gesund. Say l'chaim, the Rebbe should be well. So I took that little cup and I said, l'chaim, the Rebbe soll sein gesund, the Rebbe should be well. And I'm looking at this cup, this little cup of water, and I downed that little cup of water. That was my first l'chaim. Boy, did that go down. Wow. I was 10 years old at the time. So that was my first initiation of saying l'chaim. But what was memorable during that time, although everyone was very concerned, shocking to hear that Rebbe suffered a heart attack, what's going on, what happened, you can imagine the yeshiva students wanting to be at the epicenter, hanging out outside the Rebbe's office. What's going on? Now, what happened back there, now at that time, let's go back to what happened in 770, the night of Simchas Torah. In the middle of the Hakafas, the Rebbe suffered a heart attack. The Rebbe sat down in the middle of the Hakafas. The Rebbe would stand at his place, and normally the Rebbe would go to the first and the seventh round of Hakafas. For each other round of Hakafas, you had others who were honored to take a Torah and to go around Hakafas, and the Rebbe would stand at his place and encourage all the singing and the dancing that was going on. And everyone would be focused on the Rebbe conducting the singing. In the middle of the fourth Hakafa, the Rebbe asked for a chair and the Rebbe sat down, which was very unusual. The Rebbe then closed his eyes, and then that's when everyone, I heard that was a shock to everyone. People started running, breaking windows, running out. You have to understand, 770 at that time, I doubt had any air conditioning at that time. There was nothing that I could remember. In fact, there were only fans that were brought in the next year after the heart attack, after 1977, that they started bringing in fans. But there was no other kind of ventilation, really. And you had thousands of people there. So immediately when the word was out that the Rebbe was suffering something, everyone rushed out to make air for the Rebbe. They broke windows, that there should be air, there should be ventilation, there should be air inside, and everyone ran out. The Rebbe continued the Hakafas. The Rebbe did not characteristically focused on, right now it's Hakafas, right now it's Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah should go on. The Rebbe even walked to his Hakafa, his circle of dancing that he's supposed to be dancing on the seventh Hakafa, where he usually would dance with his brother-in-law, Rabbi Shmayahu Garari, who was known as Rashag. And he normally would dance quite a bit. Knowing that the Rebbe was not well, and the Rebbe was extremely pale, his brother-in-law just went one or two rounds and stopped, and the Rebbe smiled, that's it. But went back to his place, and then the Rebbe afterwards wished everyone good Yom Tif, good Yom Tif. And the way it was shared with me is that that when the Rebbe said good Yom Tif, you could see trembling in the Rebbe's hands when he did it. And the Rebbe walked out. There was then the chaos of what should then happen. Doctors came to see the Rebbe, and they insisted that the Rebbe should be taken to a hospital. But the Rebbe made it very clear he did not want to go. The Rebbe wanted to stay there. Those were the Rebbe's wishes, and I'm not familiar with all the give and take with the doctors back and forth. You may have had Dr. Ira Weiss before. He's familiar with all the details, but during this period of time, the Rebbe did go to the sukkah to make Kiddush. It's interesting that the night of Shmini Atzeres, we still eat in the sukkah. And even though the Rebbe suffered a heart attack, the Rebbe insisted on, number one, going to the sukkah to eat, and also making Kiddush. And insisted on making Kiddush on wine, not on grape juice. So it's, even though clearly according to Jewish law, all of that is suspended when a person is in that kind of condition. But the Rebbe is a Rebbe, and this is what the Rebbe did. When the Rebbe went back into his room afterwards, apparently the Rebbe then suffered a more severe heart attack. And at that point, doctors started coming, and Rabbi Krinsky contacted Dr. Ira Weiss here from Chicago, and he immediately went to New York. He was the only doctor really which agreed to set up like a personal ICU in the Rebbe's office. All other doctors refused to do it, and they wouldn't take any responsibility. Dr. Ira Weiss had all the connections, and he was the one who said, yes, we will. And he shared many times, he showed me personally, he shared many times openly that in retrospect, that was the best thing. Because this way you're not under the jurisdiction of the hospitals, and he was able to get the latest technology and the personal attention that the Rebbe needed right there in 770. So while going back now to the yeshiva students, everyone wanted to be there and wanted to hear what's happening with the Rebbe. How could you go away? Someone who you love so dearly is experiencing this. How could you leave? But the Rebbe instructed and made it very clear. Simchas Torah is Simchas Torah. And the celebration must continue. In fact, the Rebbe asked Rabbi Groner, the Rebbe's secretary, are they still dancing downstairs? And the Rebbe asked, are they dancing with a shturim? Are they dancing with vigor? And he said, yes, they are. And when the Rebbe heard that they were dancing, the Rebbe is gesund, the Rebbe smiled and told Rebbe Groner, these are Chassidim, optimists. The yeshiva students, despite wanting to be there, the Rebbe insisted that they should go throughout the metropolitan area of New York and continue bringing that joy to all the communities. And once again, this displays the mindset of being a soldier of the Rebbe. It's not what I want. I'd rather be right there and hang out and want to hear the latest news, the latest update, what's happening with the Rebbe. But instead of hearing what the latest update is, the Rebbe wanted that Jewish communities should be uplifted, and that should not stop. And that should not be held back just because the Rebbe is suffering what he was suffering. And in fact, the Rebbe shared in one way or another that this is what brought him greater healing and health. I did not walk back with the yeshiva students that night. Again, I was 10 years old. Later on, when I was older, I would walk back with the yeshiva students and stay there for Simchas Torah. But the night after Simchas Torah, the Rebbe would normally have a fabrengen, a gathering, a very big gathering at the end of Simchas Torah. And the Rebbe requested from the doctors if it was possible to speak. Now, here's the first time there was this use of technology here in 770. For the first time, the Rebbe was speaking. The Rebbe was allowed by the doctors, you can speak in your room. To go downstairs in 770 and have a whole formal fabrengen was too strenuous. But if you want, you could speak in your room, which they did. And with the technology that they had at that time, they had what they called a hookup. A telephone hookup. The Rebbe spoke with a microphone in his room, in his office, and that was broadcast throughout the entire shul. And I'm not sure if it was broadcast in other places, but it was broadcast throughout the shul. And the Rebbe then requested that they should distribute. Normally the Rebbe would make Havdalah and distribute from the wine after Havdalah. But the Rebbe said that should distribute wine to all those who were there. People were ecstatic to hear the Rebbe's voice. It's recorded. You can hear it online, how the Rebbe spoke right after Simchas Torah. And the Rebbe shared a message that for reasons beyond our control, this is how I'm communicating with you today. And the Rebbe shared a very uplifting message, the message of overcoming darkness, overcoming these challenges, and the joy of Simchas Torah. I remember as a young student at the time, at one point, I studied in Lubavitch Yeshiva in Ocean Parkway in New York, in Brooklyn, and many of the administration, they had older rabbis, as part of the administration. Whether they weren't teachers, but they were part of the administration of the yeshiva itself. Many of them were illustrious rabbis. And it's interesting, I remember vaguely that these rabbis, together with the Rebbe's brother-in-law, whose office was at Lubavitch Yeshiva, went then from class to class to, first of all, they brought some wine of the Rebbe, which they didn't distribute the wine to the students because they knew better than to give a glass of vodka to students. Not even vodka, certainly not vodka, but not even wine. They mixed the wine in 7-Up. And so they distributed to each child a little bit of the wine of the Rebbe that was mixed with the 7-Up, and each one had from the kosher bracha. But they were also there in order to give a report. They wanted to give a report to the Rebbe of how the students are learning with vigor, because they knew that what would be something positive for the Rebbe to bring the Rebbe's health. It would be bringing positive news of how students are continuously learning with inspiration. And so they went from class to class to bring this, kosher bracha, and also bring a report. From then onwards, although the Rebbe would normally have a gathering on Shabbos, the Rebbe continuously would want to have a farbrengen, but he couldn't do it on Shabbos, because at that time the Rebbe was still in his room. The Rebbe was still being treated by Dr. Ira Weiss and his team. But he would communicate from his office Saturday nights, a short farbrengen Saturday night, a shorter farbrengen that he would have normally on Shabbos day, but he would have it on Shabbos night, Saturday night. And this continued for several weeks after Simchas Torah, every week. And I would travel then with Rabbi Simpson. We would go from Brighton Beach, we would go to Crown Heights, and I would have the opportunity of going and hearing these hookups that were broadcast in the shul. And then at one point, I was there. I had come with him. If it was a reason for a hookup or not, but it was then announced that the Rebbe will be going home, and this was the night of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. If I remember correctly, I was there. Rabbi Simpson took us, and we were there when the Rebbe walked out to his car. But there was an incredible celebration as the Rebbe walked out, going home. The Bachrim would then took the Sefer Torahs out of the ark and continued dancing. It was once again a Simchas Torah. In other words, the Simchas Torah that was somewhat interrupted. To that extent, I mean, they certainly danced Simchas Torah as well, but it was somewhat interrupted. They continued dancing that Simchas Torah that night on Rosh Chodesh Kislev. From then onwards, Rosh Chodesh Kislev was a day to be celebrated. This is what's called, the next year was called a Sudas Hoda'ah, which literally is a Thanksgiving meal. The concept of Thanksgiving is not just American. It's something which is ingrained within Judaism, bringing an offering. In the time of the temple, you would bring an offering of Todah, And today we don't have the temple. We make the bracha hagomel, and we have a suuda, we have a celebratory meal, which is a Thanksgiving meal of Fabrengen. And so for every year afterwards, subsequently, Chassidim have been celebrating Rosh Chodesh Kislev, a time of when we were given the gift of the Rebbe returning. And at that time, the doctors told the Rebbe that he has to scale back. But within a very short time, the Rebbe went back to everything that he was doing before and even increased the type of activity that he was doing. By the way, there was a formal Sudas Hodah that the Rebbe had. It was not Rosh Chodesh Kislev. The formal Sudas Hodah the Rebbe had was on the last day of Hanukkah. The Rebbe then asked Rabbi J.J. Hecht that he should prepare a Fabrengen on the last day of Hanukkah. And he had a Fabrengen that night and distributed the wine that would have been shared on the night of Simchas Torah. He shared on that night of the night of at the end of Hanukkah. So that's why this weekend, shluchim all over the world, we gathered together. The date that was determined that we should gather together as emissaries of the Rebbe would be the time that we would be celebrating the Rebbe's return, not only to Chassidim, but the Rebbe's gift of returning to the Jewish people and continuing with greater vigor. So it's this time that we all convene, we all gather together, we all gather strength, and we all recommit ourselves to what would the Rebbe expect of us. The Rebbe returned to greater health and to a greater commitment after what he experienced. We too must recommit. And certainly at a time like this, when we all suffer the great loss of our beloved colleague that was in cold blood murdered this past week, Rabbi Tzvi Kogan, it's certainly a time that we all need to return, to gather strength, and to reignite ourselves with not only a candle, but torches of light, torches of inspiration, torches of light, of kindness, to make it contagious and to ignite the light within Jews all over the world.
Amen. Wow. Rabbi, that was unbelievable. That was amazing. I mean, it felt like we relived it. Thank you. Wow. Okay. That's amazing. Rabbi, we want to thank you. Thank you for bringing us into those experiences, almost 50 years now. If anyone has a quick...
You don't have to stress that.
If anyone has a quick question, otherwise, we're going to say goodnight. And thank you to Rabbi.